So you got some questions for me. Let's talk about them. It's absolutely freezing this morning. Well, not absolutely freezing. It's 1 degree. But it feels absolutely freezing. I may have to put my stupid hat on in a minute. But anyway, let's see where we get to. So there's a couple of questions you've asked about how we came to live in Suffolk. What brought us here? Did we expect to stay as long as we have? For those of you who don't know, I was born in Manchester back in the day. We came to Suffolk in 1989 because I got a job here. I became the assistant minister at Stowmarket Parish Church. So that may lead you on to another question, which is, am I a vicar? The answer to that is yes and no. Depends what you mean by vicar. So I have been, and I guess still am, a professional God botherer. So I'm a lay minister. I was commissioned by the Archbishop of Canterbury in 1987 through an organisation called Church Army, which is not the Salvation Army, but it's like the Church of England version of the Sally Army. Church Army do loads of great stuff, including sending people like me to work in parishes across the country, but they also work with homeless people, prisoners, military personnel, and they also do some other strange and wonderful stuff. For example, you may have heard of a guy called Terry Waite, who became a hostage to terrorists years ago. But Terry Waite worked for the Archbishop. He was like the Archbishop's special envoy. But he was, at the time, I think, when he got kidnapped, he was still a Church Army officer. So that's kind of what brought us to Suffolk. My job in the Church of England. Did we expect to stay as long? No, not really. As jobs in parishes are typically sort of 3 to 5, 6 years, 7 at a push. I stayed at Stowmarket Parish Church for 9 years, but the last 4 years I worked at St. Peter's. I developed a registered charity called RSVP Trust, and that was to kind of support my wider ministry. So I started going to Africa. We built a school and an orphanage. I think we got about 400 or 500 children sponsored, so hundreds of kids got education through my charity. I used to go out to Africa once a year. Began in Uganda, but we really settled down in Rwanda, just across the border. Rwanda was a country in 96, when I think was the first time I went. It was just 2 years after the genocide, and horrible. And I felt my purpose and the purpose of the charity was just to help the guys there, especially in one particular village, to just help the country heal. And one of the ways we did that was through education. And we went on to do a lot of poverty relief work, feeding people who were literally starving in remote villages. The charity did a lot of other good work. Guess who I've met on my walk? The eldest daughter. That was nice. Just met the eldest daughter out on the truck. Where was I? The vehicle is reversing. So a couple of years back we slightly scaled the charity down because it was very expensive to do everything that we were doing. I'm pleased to report that everything we were doing has carried on. The little bit I've carried on with personally through the RSVP is medical insurance. So there's no NHS in Rwanda, and but the government will do their government will do medical insurance for £3 a year per person. So we tend to do that in batches of 100 people, so every time we raise 300 quid for that, we buy 100 people medical insurance. And I've kept that on because, I mean, £3 a year, that's easy to donate to, and also for a lot of the people that get it, it's literally the difference between life and death. So the second part of that question, was, are there any local walks you have yet to conquer? I'm sure some of the walks are not maintained well. Do you feed back to the local council? I think I've got a basic idea of most of the local walks. But if you enjoyed my recent epic 90-minute video, and I really didn't expect anyone to sit through all that, but I just planned a little walk using a map to go from Stowmarket up to Shelland and then back through Harleston and Onehouse, I think. So I'd not actually done that route before, but what I'd say is I don't really view it as kind of conquering local walks, but what I love about living in Stowmarket and this area is, like, literally this morning I just walked from home. I think I'm about 5-10 minutes away from the front door, and you're out in the countryside, and pretty much going out any way from Stowmarket, you're out in the countryside. And I know that all used to be fields. Sound like me dead now. I remember when all this was fields, and you can see that the housing is filling a lot of that up. And we have got a question about housing, so I'll come to that in a minute. But yeah, I think the great thing is just to go for a walk. Sometimes I like to plan it on the map. Sometimes I like, you've perhaps seen videos of going for a walk with my mate Bob Halls, who grew up here. He walks a lot more than I do, and he knows all the little tracks and things and cut throughs, so it's great going to walk with him. The other thing about Bob, don't tell him I said this, but Bob will always say, "I'll just do a short walk," and it's always a lot longer than I would have done. You know, he'll say, "I'll just do a short walk today, nothing too big," and then you get to the end and look at the track and you've done about 9 miles. One day we went for a walk that was supposed to be a short walk, and by the time I got back home it was 11 miles. I'm kind of happier with sort of 3 to 6 miles really. As for the footpaths and telling the council and all that, I'm not sure it's the local council. Obviously if the footpath's on council land, it's like, is the footpath down the River Gipping, is that council land? I think it might be. Anyway, if the footpath's on council land, fair enough. But most of these footpaths are just ancient rights of way, and you really need to use them, because the minute there's a sort of bill going through Parliament or something that if we don't re-register a footpath, it's going to cease to be a right of way. So I think the sort of Ramblers Association and those organisations are on the case, and they're working on that. I know a couple of Americans that were watching a YouTube video about just walking across private land were just astonished, because that you just couldn't do that in America. So I think it's a fairly unique right that we have here in Britain, and we need to sort of keep the footpaths open. Oh, sorry, I've had to put my flipping stupid hat on because no, I look like a wally, but my brain is completely frozen. So just to round up the how do we come to live in Suffolk question, the other part of the question was it a culture shock? It was, in a way. Yeah, it was quite a big culture shock. And the other strange thing about coming to live in Suffolk was obviously being a person of faith, you see God in some things. Now this may or may not have been a coincidence, see what you think, but we knew we would be moving back in 1989, and I feel like Benny from Crossroads wearing this. So our first time visit ever to Suffolk, we were heading to Felixstowe for a funeral, and coming through Bury St Edmunds the car started making a funny noise, and I actually pulled over at Tot Hill petrol station. I don't know why, I don't know anything about cars. Anyway, I couldn't see any loose wires or anything, And my wife and I have been chatting about where we might end up when we leave Manchester. And we don't really have hills in Suffolk, but there is an incline as you come out of the petrol station. And as we came over the incline, you could see Stowmarket, particularly the Chiltern Hall estate, just on the horizon. And I just sort of waved my hands over there and said this could be a nice place to live. And 6 months later, this is where we lived. Not only that, we actually lived on the Chiltern Hall estate, more or less in the direction where I'd waved my hands. So make of that what you will. But was it a culture shock? It was. I remember, because initially I had to do a lot of church meetings and stuff with vicars and what have you. I remember one morning being a bit late, so I was kind of rushing into the centre of Stowmarket in the car, and I was a bit late, and the car in front stopped, and I was getting really agitated, thinking, why have you stopped? There's no one crossing the road, nothing coming the other way. What is your problem? Just get a move on. And then as I looked, 4 or 5 ducks crossed the road. And that's when I thought, that's never happened in Manchester. I'm used to gridlocked city traffic and everyone rushing at every possible point to get ahead. The duck incident just made me think, I've really got to slow down, this is a different culture. And then the other bit of the culture shock was this lady at church who seemed to speak English. Very understandable, no problem understanding her. One day shortly after we arrived, she popped round with her husband. He was a real Suffolk boy. He started talking to me, but if I'm honest, what I heard was, I ain't got a clue what he was talking about, saying Suffolk. Fortunately, his wife translated into English, and I eventually tuned into the Suffolk accent. To be fair, some Sundays when I was speaking in church, the old Suffolk boys had come after me and said, I ain't got a clue what you were saying there, because apparently I have a northern accent. I mean, a lot of that's disappeared because I've lived here for 30 odd years, but back in the day, So another question was, what are your thoughts on new builds and flooding, causation and correlation? I do have some opinions on housing, I have to say. So first of all, we need new houses. We just do, there aren't enough houses for people. It's part of the reason that homeless population is growing to ridiculous levels, and the government doesn't seem bothered by that. I think what we need to be building is sort of like the old council house system back in the day. I mean, but I briefly lived in a council house in Manchester in my late teens, and I remember the council came and they sort of upgraded the house, put central heating and stuff. Social housing is really good because they were sort of really well built houses, but at affordable rents. Because it's all gone private, nobody can afford the flipping rent these days. And all these partnerships, every time they build a development, there's technically supposed to be some social housing, a percentage of social housing, but there's loopholes in the law, and generally just don't get built, or a much smaller percentage get built. And the other thing is, the houses they're building that I just walked past a while ago, why are we building houses that are not virtually off grid? Why they're not built with solar panel roofs? Why are they not built with mega insulation? Why are they not built with the future sort of heating systems? I tell you why they build crappy houses. There's more money in it for the developers. It's really, really bad for the future of our country and the future of the world, the future of the climate. So would I do a meetup for subscribers walk for a video. So a few things about that. Question one is, we meet up with people and do a walk, and I've explored that. I think in a recent video I just asked if anyone would be interested in doing something like that, and then I think I got bogged down in thinking, do I need public liability insurance and who's responsible for the walk and blah blah blah. And I know we could just say we're having a meet up and people are responsible for themselves, but yeah, I'm not against it. I think it'd be a lovely idea, but I'm just got to be quite careful these days. But yeah, we'd definitely be open to that, to perhaps just leave that with me. I suppose the other thing is, how long would the walk be? Everyone's got different abilities, so do you just do a short one? Do you just meet up? I don't know. The second part of that question was, would we do a subscribers meet up for a video? Filming a video is one thing, and being with a group of people is another. Now, there are some videos on the channel about when I did some walks with the leisure centre and filmed those, and the Dementia Action Alliance, and we did walk with a group and I did film it, but that was slightly different in that the focus was on the group, and I know we could meet up and the focus wouldn't be on me, but it's like if the common denominator is people have watched the channel and you're going to meet up, people probably want to chat. There's a certain skill to filming while you're chatting, then you've got to take into account some people don't want to be in a video, and that was one of the things of the leisure centre walks. Some people definitely did not want to be in the video, and I had to just be aware of them while I was filming. But having said all that, yes, in principle I think it'd be a lovely idea to meet up for a walk, hopefully when the weather gets a little bit warmer and the fields are not so muddy. I think that could be a definite possibility. So coming back to the question of new builds and whether they cause flooding, this development here, and that was on these are all fields, and they slope down to the Rattlesden River. Down no idea who that was. That just nearly gave me a heart attack. There's no question in my mind that this development has caused more flooding down in the Rattlesden River Valley, which we'll go to in a minute. Because, first of all, obviously if you're covering a field with concrete and tarmac, you're cutting off a supply of drainage. A lot of rainwater would have soaked into the ground. Now it's all got to go into drains. And the other reason is this whole road here, the line on this side of the development, had a lot of ancient trees that were all ripped out, and those big ancient trees will drink up a lot of water, which is now all just going down the drains. But I don't think you can actually get through the estate yet. We'll just go round the other side. Yeah, so take out all these ancient trees just mentioned, and they planting these. It's probably so small and thin you can't even see them. These pathetic little things. Well, I mean, you're going to have to wait about 100 years before there's any chance of them getting any size that could take the capacity of water that the old trees did. There's no reason for the view, but I'd prefer a view of trees myself. I lived here, but really chopping down ancient trees to improve the view is just, it's absolutely outrageous. So that was a huge mistake in this development. But these fields here used to be a footpath just here, and thankfully I've captured what the fields used to look like. In this bit of video here, tiles, that is these fields. You walk up, there was like a lower field, then you came up a slope and came up to this upper field. But now, obviously the rainwater doesn't have the trees to drink up the rain. It also, there's no, it's mostly not grass, it's mostly tarmacked and concreted, so rain doesn't soak into tarmac and concrete, and so that's all just running down the hill. I mean, they put this big ditch in here at the side of the road where the old trees were, but that's really not going to do it. It's not going to stop the flooding down at the bottom. So now down on the bottom road, this building development, when they first came here and just scraped the topsoil off, this stretch of road here, and they took all the hedges out. There's a load of hedges there, absolutely no necessary reason to take them out. Wildlife nested in them and everything. Ancient hedgerow destroyed, and obviously bringing the footpath down here. But so there's absolutely no reason that they took that old hedge out. That old hedge would have soaked up a lot of water, the trees would have drank that. But as soon as they scrape the topsoil off up there, this whole stretch of road is just awash with muddy silt going across with a lot of complaints. But you see here, they've obviously had the road dug up. I'll show you what they've done. So this road is Wash Lane, goes down to the nearest river, which is the Rattleston River, or some people call it the River Rat, not to be confused with the rodent, of course. So this is the River Rat, or Rattleston River, and they, from that top field where the development is, they put a pipe in. There's a couple of pipes coming out there. But this little one at the side, I think, is the drainage from up there. But as you may have seen in one of my recent videos, this bridge I'm stood on was pretty much underwater at one point. So all the water that would have been soaked up at where they built the development, and they've taken all them trees out that would have soaked up a lot of water, and they've taken all that hedgerow out that would soak up a lot of water, and it all comes into here, which makes the flooding a lot worse. And you can see it's just that little pipe there. It all go into the Rattleston River. That goes into the town centre. It floods at the other end of town at Coombs. Floods there anyway, so you've got a lot more water going down there than you did before. So just a bad design. If I'm honest, what really pees me off about these developments is it is possible to do a really good development with lots of open land, but of course they cram as many houses on it as they can, because they're all about the money. They're not about building good houses or caring about the environment. They want the maximum amount of financial return. But houses last a long time, and we shouldn't be building things today that are not good for the environment, and we should really think through these developments, because we could make such a difference, could make a better world for our children and grandchildren, and we're just storing up problems for them, really, in my opinion. Any road up, those are my sort of thoughts on the questions. If you get any more questions, it's quite fun answering these. Do leave a comment with a question below, or any sort of comments, observations that you may have. Now it's still 1 degree, and I am gonna get back and have a hot drink and put my feet up for an hour before I go off to the gym. So if you found that video enjoyable or helpful in any way, please don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell. You get notifications of new videos, and I'll see you next time. Let's talk again soon.